Hey y'all, I am Michelle Mazelleغ. Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to share with you all this video clip and then we're going to come back and talk about it. So let's get into it.
Sometimes I think about how a lot of Black Americans can low-key be colonizers. You know how a lot of Americans like to be in the spotlight? They always want to be at the center of the story. A lot of Black Americans are actually like that when it comes to African stories. They're not interested in Africa unless they're at the center of it. Good example is Woman King. There's also Black Panther, which had the backdrop of Africa, but they didn't even have a premiere event in at least 10 African countries. And no, don't tell me about the one or two African actors in these movies, because it's giving I have a black friend. Also seen a couple of Black Americans traveling from America to African countries to have their hair done because it's cheap. It's giving cheap labor. Who else did that? There's also the passport bros who are like, oh my god, I should just go get a wife in Africa because they're easier to oppress and they don't have rights. And lately, there has been a huge number of Black Americans doing a lot of investments in African countries, especially real estate. But the problem is, they're coming and they want to change everything. They're like, yo, the architecture that you have in these African countries, not our vibe. We're just gonna bring that American aesthetic. You're just gentrifying a lot of African countries, but you don't care about that, right? As long as you get money in your pocket.
So I knew after she made this video that she was going to get a lot of backlash. There's going to be a lot of negativity coming from this video. I think it's important when you look at a video like this that you really listen to understand what she's trying to say and not listen to lash out. And I think that's a lot of times what happens in these types of conversations between African Americans and people from the African continent, is that there's not a lot of listening to understand, but listening to lash out or listening to attack. And that is definitely what happened with this video. Now, there was a stitch on TikTok, a response to what she said, her video, and I'm going to share with you all what he had to say about what she said, and then we're going to come back and really get into it.
Before I start,
I'm sorry, I just had to put in that second clip because y'all know I'm hella petty. So in that first clip I showed you, you see how the girl was screaming that Black Americans, we think we're better than them, and that we're basically colonizers. And it's just funny because to me, like I said, it's pure jealousy, because this is the thing, right? There's only one group of people, really Europeans, that you can blame for the reason of the state of the places that y'all are from. And this is where the misplaced anger comes from, because it's obviously true that y'all must be some type of scared of white people, because y'all be having all this energy for Black Americans, but Black Americans did nothing to you. It's not our fault that somebody came to y'all's land and completely took all your resources and as we see, as of today, y'all do nothing. All y'all do is get online and get mad at Black Americans that did nothing to you. The only person y'all have to blame is yourself. And that's why y'all are mad, because the only person y'all have to blame is yourself, because your leaders sold y'all out so they can make some money while y'all suffered. Maybe if back in the 15 and 1600s, if y'all weren't so friendly and wasn't just letting people with a smile come up in there and take all your, you wouldn't be in the place that you're in today with your friend.
And I would want to ask him, name one leader that he's talking about, without Googling. One leader that fits into what he just said. He probably couldn't name one. And then here he is attacking these countries of Africa and the leaders there that he can't name any. He doesn't know the historical context behind these struggles. He doesn't know any historical context about the people and how they have been fighting these struggles. He doesn't know any of that. You know why? Because he's speaking from emotion. He's not speaking from any facts. Otherwise, he would have brought some to the table. And when people start talking like that, you want to ask them, what country do you live in again? The United States of America. Okay, what are we facing right now with leadership? Can someone tell me? I want to know. I want to know what we're facing right now as far as leadership in the United States of America. I know it's going great, ain't it? It is going wonderful. There's no political unrest going on in the United States concerning any type of politicians or leaders that have been in power. No funny business is going on in the United States, right? Of course it is. Of course it is. But Americans never want to look at the flaws of America. They are able to see the flaws of everybody else around the world. But then when it comes to America, all of a sudden their eyes are closed. They all of a sudden got cataracts. They can't see. The unrest right now in the United States of America is unreal. Is unreal. And there are some Americans that are just oblivious to that fact, but have the nerve to talk about unrest and foul leadership going on in these other countries as if America isn't facing these same situations. Like, come on, give me a break. It's funny how Americans feel like that America is not the reason why some of these countries are where they are. Like, they want to just exempt America from the reason, like I said, the reason why some of these countries are the way they are, and they want to think that it's just the Europeans. If they actually look into history, if they actually read history, then they will know that a lot of these countries in Africa, yes, it was the Europeans, and they have to remember where the Europeans were when this was going on. They were in the United States of America. They forget that the founding fathers of the United States of America were Europeans. That's where they came from. They migrated from Europe and founded the United States of America. So they would be in that whole situation, and that a lot of these countries are suffering on the account of you being able to have the life that you have. They're suffering so that Americans can be able to have the life that they have, and you're not able to have compassion for those people. You're sitting there making fun of them and poking fun at them because you are able to live at the expense of their safety, at the expense of their resources, at the expense of their lives, so that you can go in here and post a TikTok video. You're able to enjoy the luxuries that you're able to enjoy because the people went into those lands and took those resources. The phone that you're on right now wouldn't be able to be used if it would not be for the continent of Africa. You wouldn't be able to use that phone right now. None. Null and void. Zero. Zilch. Half of the resources, majority, not even half, majority of the resources that the United States is functioning on is only functioning because of the continent of Africa. Why it's being functioned. And most Americans don't even know that. Their resources are in natural resources that are literally coming from the earth. It's natural. And you are coming into their country with military weapons. Because if you know that a lot of the military weapons that the countries of Africa are using, a lot of them are coming from outside of the continent of Africa. The weapons that the African chiefs were given in African empires were given to them by the Europeans. So since that's the case, and the Europeans are supplying these weapons to the countries of Africa, do you honestly think that they're going to give them enough to be able to conquer them? Is that what you actually believe when you're talking about them willingly being taken over? And I bet you, if you ask this man if he knew of any country of Africa that's fighting right now, their government right now, he couldn't name one. He couldn't name one. Because he doesn't know what's going on the continent of Africa. Has absolutely no idea. He ain't looking at no news pertaining to the continent of Africa. All he's doing is just speculating. One of the things that she said in her video that he really should have taken the time to understand, some of the points that she was saying, is that a lot of times when it comes to the continent of Africa and when it comes to the culture of Africa, a lot of African Americans like himself are blinded by the struggles there. They are blinded by what's going on there. And so nobody wanted to go there. Nobody wanted to visit there. Nobody wanted to learn about the people. Nobody thought anything great came out of the continent of Africa. Nobody thought that there was any talent coming from the continent of Africa. And so that the Africa had a very negative image for a very, very long time, that a lot of African Americans wanted to separate themselves from that continent because they did not want the negativity and the darkness that they thought came with it. But when Black Panther came out, African Americans came out in droves to see that movie. Not only did they come out in droves, they came dressed to impress to those movies. And they came dressed in a lot of cultural wear from the continent of Africa. And like she said in her video, there's 54 countries in the continent of Africa, and not that many even had a movie premiere of the movie. So you have all these cultures that are embedded into this movie, and you're saying the majority of the continent didn't even get to see it? But as Black Americans, we were sitting in the movie theaters. We were enjoying ourselves, eating our little popcorn. You had your little wear on, your little fashion coming on, on from a country of Africa. I mean, we were in deep. We were in deep. And there was an article that I read that said about how the Black Panther was really like a opening or something great for Black America. It just totally left out the continent of Africa, as if they would not be included in that, with so many representation, the language, the fashion, the culture, all of that embedded into this movie. And it's almost like, well, sorry, who cares about the continent of Africa? Who cares about the people there? All we want to see is the movie. And you kind of forgot about all of that. And you didn't even think about the fact that majority of the people on the African continent wasn't even able to enjoy it. I myself didn't even think about that until she said it. I did not think of so many people on the African continent that did not get a chance to see Black Panther, and they should have been able to see that movie, because there was a lot of representations of their cultures that they probably would have recognized, that unfortunately a lot of African Americans did not. She went further to talk about how there are some African Americans that go to these countries of Africa and use them for whatever purpose they want to use them for, and then get mad when things don't work out for them. And then they get on social media and they dog the country, they dog the people, simply because the country is not accommodating them. And they never think to themselves that they should go and assimilate to the culture and to the way things are. They want to be accommodated. The reason why I do the videos I do, because it's high time for there to be the real conversations. The real conversations have to be had, and some people are not ready for those conversations. And the real conversation is that there's a lot of flaws and imperfections on both sides in both of these communities that both need to work on. But what kills me is when you have someone like that, how some African Americans really think that there's nothing wrong with anything that they say or do. They're able to say and do whatever they want to, but as soon as somebody else says something, then it is a problem. It is an issue. And that's what she said in her response video, is that you can't sit and talk about everybody else, and then when somebody talks about you, all of a sudden you want to call foul. And if you're going to talk about people, then you have to be ready then for the response that they're going to give to you. Which means if you're doing something to somebody, if you're doing something to offend somebody, then you have to be ready for what they have to say. And you really need to start listening to understand what they say instead of listening to attack, which is what he did. He literally was attacking an entire continent based on one lady's comment. And she was not attacking African Americans per se. What she was talking about was the situations that involved African Americans. And she was giving actual examples of how she felt, as far as how some African Americans, and I'm going to say some African Americans, how they treat the continent of Africa, and why it's important as African Americans we don't do that. That we don't have that oppressive mindset, that we don't act like oppressors, because as a people, we know how it is to be oppressed, and we need to make sure that we don't have that same mentality on people that come from the continent of Africa. All right, you all, that is all I have to say on that. I am Michelle Mazelleغ. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.